Today is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Howard University Interim President Dr. Wayne Frederick joins us to talk about the disenrollment of 502 incoming freshmen and gives us an update on what's going on. Approximately 25 million people rely on a Medicare subsidy program initiated during the Biden administration. However, the Trump administration has decided to end it, which will result in increased premiums in 2027. An anti-affirmative action group has filed a lawsuit against the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, claiming that college scholarships for black students from underfunded schools in majority black districts are discriminatory based on race. We'll talk with the attorney representing the CBCF. The late Congressman David Scott's daughter, Marcy Scott, was forced into a runoff for his seat in Georgia's 13th Congressional District. We'll tell you who she is going to be against. We are less than 100 days away from the midterm elections, and MAGA continue its attack on black folks and voting rights. We will discuss efforts to ensure a safe and fair election with the senior national coordinator at the Election Protection Coalition. An Ohio rapper Afroman may be headed back to court. This time he's turning the tables on the deputies who sued him by filing a lawsuit against one of them for allegedly stealing $400. And Congressman Jim Clyburn caused a ruckus on social media when he said that he put the onus on black voters for the loss of Kamala Harris. A lot of people said he was wrong. What is the data, though? What does the data say? We're going to break it down. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Howard University has been catching lots of hell after 502 students were de-enrolled. It's led to lots of drama. I talked with Howard University President Wayne Frederick about this, how many students have been re-enrolled, and what are they going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again. Here's our conversation. President Frederick, always glad to talk with you. Let's get right into it. So, reports said that some 502 students were impacted by the decision to unenroll them. Is that the total number of students that were impacted?
That's the total number that we sent the enrollment message to, that they had not met the criteria on the checklist in terms of doing all the things that we expected them to do so that we could be prepared to receive them in the fall. That's correct.
Of that 502, how many have y'all worked with to get their finances straight, and how many have been enrolled?
We've worked with all 502. It's not only about finances, but primarily about finances. And over 200 have been enrolled. We're closing off the process, and so we'll have a final number soon. But about approximately over 200 have been enrolled, and a certain percentage never responded to us, et cetera, which was part of the concern. These students who are probably, making a different decision, going to go somewhere else, et cetera. Nevertheless, we needed to be able to prepare for the school year and make sure that we had everything in place on the day that they showed up.
This is a large number impacted. Had you ever encountered this before? And was there anything unique that happened this year compared to previous years?
Unfortunately, Roland, this probably happens every single year. And to some extent, this leaves us a bit unprepared because we really get a sense of the census the first week of class. We have people showing up, scrambling for housing, trying to get them registered, doing several different things, which also impacts our customer service negatively. And we've had people complain about not having professors in the classroom on the first day of class, etc. So we've done everything possible to make sure it was different. What was different this year? We sent out our financial aid packages in March, the earliest we've ever done that. We opened the housing portal so that they could apply for housing in April, the earliest we've ever done that. So what I would say happened differently this year is that we took every step that we could possibly take to ensure that we were prepared as early as possible and that we gave students and their families an opportunity to be prepared as well so that we could plan appropriately and be ready on August 17th, the first day of class.
We've heard from a number of students and parents who said they called, they got different words from different people saying, no, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And so how do you deal with that where it was this much confusion? Was it all on the students' part and their parents, or is it also some of this on Howard University and because I've heard, well, you got financial aid office, you got the bursar, you got academic, you got like different places they were all calling.
Yeah, so listen, higher education today is a complicated process. And so all of those offices did communicate with the students. I don't think the information was different. I think they were communicating with them about different things. So financial aid is communicating with you about documents that you may have to send for a variety of different things that you may need to do. The bursar's office might be talking to you about making payments and how you go about doing those things. So everybody that's interacting with the students is doing something different. Regardless of that, the enrollment management office is sending information about the overall enrollment process. And again, I have to emphasize, Roland, that over 2,200 students and their families got it right, did everything within the deadline time, etc., and were successfully enrolled when we made this decision. They were clear about what we were doing, what needed to be done, which means that the messaging could not have been that confusing if those 2,200 did it. Now, could we do things better? Absolutely. For a private institution, we have a high Pell Grant eligible student body. Some 43% of the students are Pell Grant eligible. That means that they're coming from socioeconomic circumstances in which they need assistance with different things, et cetera. And so we have to make sure that we are providing that kind of support in a better way on a go-forward basis. We have students who are coming from homeless shelters. Unfortunately, this is a growing part of what we're seeing. And so, as you can imagine, if you're a student in a shelter, you get a bill for $1,000. You're not interacting with parents who can assist you. I think all of that can be confusing. So learning the different circumstances of our students earlier is one of the things that we're going to charge the team with. And as we build out our enrollment strategy, those are some of the elements that we would add so that we do provide more services to those students, so to ensure that everybody is clear about what their responsibilities are and the deadline dates, et cetera.
So you are looking at where shortfalls were, because let's just be honest. You're on this show, you've had to go on CNN, you've had people dragging university through the mud on every social media platform. And the thing, I mean, that's not what anybody wants. And no other HBCU is going through this. We look at social. And so you've made it clear to your team, hey, if there's some places that we need to shore up, let's do that so we don't have a repeat of this in the future.
Absolutely. Our process improvement is going to look at all of those things, right? One of the confusing points was what was the 50% due amount. I think what was written was clear, but we could have put an example, for instance, in the communication to make it crystal clear. Right? If the bill is $60,000 and you have aid for $40,000, some people felt they met the 50%. The 50% was related to the $20,000 outstanding beyond the aid. And so we could have put an example that would have made that clear to people, that they would have owed us $10,000 in that example I'm using, for instance. So we could always communicate better. Let me just be absolutely clear. And I have publicly apologize. Now, you did bring up one issue, though, about being on several media places and social media. And the reality is, Howard University is always going to attract that kind of attention for one reason or the other. Nobody focuses on the amount of accommodation that we're making for the group of students in general that come to us. Nobody is knocking down my door to discuss the fact that we've graduated more Black physicians than anyone else. People love the sensational stuff. But regardless of that, we continue to, I think, provide an excellent education, and we continue to really extend ourselves to those who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity anywhere else. And so I think I'm proud of what we do. We can do some things better, and we will do things better. But for things that occur at any other university, it just gets a different level of attention than it would here, and especially if it's sensational or negative. But I got to tell you, I think there are lots of other questions you could ask.
We got 1 minute left, and there were people who were making comments saying, you've gotten money from Mackenzie Scott, you've got this endowment. And
Yes.
one of the things I had
Yes.
Dr. Aaron Lynch on, who sort of laid out, like, folks, understand how much money we're talking about. If you've got 500 students, and let's just say, you know, if you're running numbers and those 500 students, you know, owed just to say an average of $30,000 that they had to pay, you know, what people don't realize is, you know, that's $15 million. So do you think it is unfair for people to expect Howard to float folks for that amount, knowing full well that you are dealing with a massive amount of expenses that comes with an individual who is trying to enroll?
Yeah, it's not only unfair, I would say it's incredibly naive. Listen, the math speaks for itself, as you just pointed out, but I'll take it one step further. Those people are focused on those 500 students. I'm focused on the 12 to 13,000 students across this campus. The federal government has made a decision that to cap the amount of loans that students in the professional schools can take out. So when I look at my med school, my law school, my dental school, the opportunity that those students are going to have to fund their education is slipping away. And so we are
just President Frederick, for the people who don't know, that was in Trump's big, beautiful bill where that was capped. And in many ways, this is reminiscent of when the Parent Plus loan was capped under President Obama, and that caused a financial tsunami across HBCUs.
That's exactly right. And some of the changes they've made even to the Plus loan made us as an institution not even package our students with Plus loan. The denial rate for Plus loans last year at Howard was very high. So when we put financial aid packages together this year, we didn't even include Plus loans. So the point is, when we look at all of our resources and we look at the buildings that we need to build, this is a fairly old campus. There's a lot of stuff that we are spending money on that to say to us that we should just put up 15 million plus for 500 students because of monies that we've raised and brought in, I think is naive. And then the last thing is the way endowments work, they grow. Right, I'm proud to say that not only is our endowment the only one over $1 billion among the HBCUs, it's now $1.5 billion. But we have to be shrewd about using our spending rule of 5% a year as to what we use that for. And if you do the math on the $1.5 billion and the amount that we really use to calculate that, which is about $700 million, it's about 30-something million you put into the operating budget of a $1 billion enterprise. So you have to be realistic about what those things go to pay for.
All right, then, President Wayne Frederick, I appreciate you joining us here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, want to bring in my panel now. Rebecca Carruthers, President, CEO, Fair Election Center from D.C. Dr. Derek Jackson, State Representative out of Georgia. From Atlanta, Zabora G, DEIA Consultant and Employment Specialist from D.C. as well. Rebecca, I'll start with you. This has obviously caused some serious PR issues for Howard University. But the bottom line is this is also an economic issue, and I'm glad to see the number of people who are getting assistance and who will be enrolled. The 502, he said so far, more than 200.
The story is very layered. So I went to Nebraska for law school, but I did a semester abroad through Howard Law, through its South Africa program, and I did studies at University of Western Cape, which is a HBCU in South Africa. It was a school that both Black and colored students could go to during apartheid. I remember what it was like when I was transferring some of my student aid from Nebraska law to Howard, and I'm getting those calls saying that I didn't pay and all of these other things, and having to spend time on the phone with Howard Financial Aid Office. And so it's sad to see that there are still issues with students versus some of the issues I had 20 years ago. That said, we are also in an environment, a political dynamic that is trying to defund the ability of Black folks in this country to seek higher education. We know Black women over-index in seeking higher education. And so all of the avenues that have allowed for that to happen is being swiftly shut down by this administration. I think what's unfortunate is Howard is caught in a perfect storm of maybe having an inaccurate financial aid system, having an inaccurate bursar system, also facing the political headwinds of what's happening in this country. I know there are other HBCUs, and quite frankly, there are PWIs that are dealing with some of these issues and caps on federal money. However, Howard and Howard alum make it very clear that they have a certain level of excellence. So if that's what you're telling the public in every other thing, then you also have to have a standard of excellence when it comes to your financial aid and billing process.
Precisely. And Derek, that was one of the points that when I asked the president, bottom line is Howard has to fix their internal issues. I mean, see, here's the whole point, okay? School is starting next month. We have not done this story for Florida A&M. Or North Carolina A&T, or Morehouse, or Spelman. And so my point is, if I'm the president of Howard University, if I'm in the administration, I don't want to be in the news. So what I'm going to do is drill down and say, what the hell happened here that created this tsunami? And listen, 502 out of 20, saying 502 freshmen, but 2,200 got enrolled. I understand that, but 502 is a hell of a lot of people.
502 is a lot of students, incoming potential freshmen. And you're exactly right, Roland. This is not happening. This is not a widespread challenge. It's not happening at FAMU. It's not happening right here at Morehouse or Spelman. And I agree with Rebecca. I mean, this is not a first-time issue, Roland, and you brought it out during your interview with him, and he said it. They have problems all the time. And listen, in full transparency, I love Howard University, right? I got 7 children. Some of them went to PWI. Some of them went to an HBCU. And Howard is one of our considered meccas. And this is not this is not a misstep or a mix-up, and I certainly and I know I appreciate you covering this, because one of the things that we have to do, especially in our community, is bring light and say, listen, there's a problem. We have 502 students having challenges. What are you doing to fix it? Because these parents, especially the alumni, want this problem fixed. And so this is not simply just a mix-up. And yes, there's a political side, and certainly don't want to already add on to what Rebecca mentioned. But the other side, we demand excellence. That's our expectation when it comes to HBCUs, and Howard is on the top of that chart.
The more I'll tell you right point blank, position I have is, I'm telling everybody, we ain't having this problem next year. I mean, we ain't dealing with this. I remember when Florida A&M had issues with checking the grades of their football players, and a number of them couldn't play in the game because they had not been approved. And that's one of those things that, I'm sorry, that can't happen. That simply cannot happen. And so, again, you deal with the present problem, which is the students that couldn't get in. You rectify as many as possible. To his point, there may be people who chose not to go to Howard, because there are a lot of people who get accepted, but they go to other institutions. But you fix it as quickly as possible, and you tell everybody, yo, we ain't having this problem next year. We're not going to be on the news next year. When Howard had their issues with their dormitories, same thing. I get, at least you got old infrastructure, but you saying word to everybody, we are not going old school. We're not going to be on the front page. We're not going to be at the top of the news show showing all these problems. That has to be made clear, and then the word also has to be, and if you clearly don't get that, then you're not going to be working here.
Definitely. I'm a current student right now in Howard University's PhD in social work program. And just as a social worker, looking at everything that's been going on and really understanding that there are layered problems. We have to get our systems right. We need to do some program evaluations and check these offices and make sure that they are running efficiently. But at the same time, for us to say we've had this problem from year to year, that lets us know that this is a problem. It shouldn't happen every year. It's not happening at other schools. And this is not the first or the last time that Howard's going to be on mainstream media and on social media. And if we don't take these accusations seriously, because there were more than just these students are unenrolled for, the financial aspect of things. I am a person that I can say Howard has did better with communication for financial aid this year. I never received that before in my previous years, but this year I received a lot of emails. However, I will also say there's problems in housing, there's problems with the incoming freshmen, and they're taking the brunt of this, and we got to do something different. You have to make sure that the financial aid system is correct. The political system is impacting graduate students, professional students. When you say professional students, I'm a social worker, we're a professional program. We've been impacted by the Big Beautiful Bill. So I think that looking at it from a more macro scale and really understanding how these students are impacted and not just dismissing it or minimizing it, your communication has to be better.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to go to break. We come back. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett lights up a congressional panel. Crockett Chronicles is next, right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter, and they found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
Let me ask you a question. Why do so many people seem to think they know black men so well? What they think we want, what they think we need. Hell, they even tried to tell us why and how we voted, but never had a conversation with us. Never asked us how we felt, what brings us joy, what makes us angry, what makes us scared. How do we live? That's what this show is about. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. We can speak for ourselves. This will be a show where we bring brothers on that you don't see on every other talk show. Nope. Brothers that are doing work in local communities with black men for black communities. We're going to hear each other and try to understand so perhaps we can move forward together. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. Nope. What we need is each other. No translation, right here on the Black Star Network. Check it out.
this is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered, though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect anything less? Watch what happens next.
Last week, the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Oversight held a hearing called False Narratives Surrounding Conditions at the Delaney Hall ICE Detention Center. During the hearing, from her opening statements to her questioning, let's just say Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was sick of all other Republican BS.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to the witnesses that are here, as well as other colleagues that are sitting in the audience. We're back again for another edition of the Republican Party's Great Replacement Theory Therapy Session, where all the white men of the House Judiciary Committee lecture Americans on the importance of mass deportations so that they preserve their so-called American values, like shooting and killing American citizens who are peacefully protesting, or stuffing hundreds of thousands of people into cages without proper nutrition or medical care. But nevertheless, in the time since our last hearing on this topic, more than 40 people have died while in ICE custody, of which 30% have died at a facility run by GEO Group, who happens to be the same private detention contractor that operates Delaney Hall. At multiple GEO facilities, individuals report dangerously substandard conditions, including mold, various outbreaks, including chickenpox, and insufficient food and water. Facilities operated by GEO have failed to comply with ICE's own national detention standards. In fact, on numerous occasions, the government found that GEO-run facilities had, quote, incompetent leadership, and that, quote, problematic medical care was occurring as a result, unquote. GEO has also been admonished by the courts, yet the chairman has not called anyone from the company to testify before this subcommittee, which is not surprising because they're pouring millions of dollars into Republican campaigns across the country. Let us play a game of follow the money, shall we? GEO Group has donated more than $1 million to Donald Trump's super PAC, nearly $1 million to Speaker Mike Johnson's super PAC, hundreds of thousands to John Thune's super PAC. So they spend millions to get Republicans elected around the country, and in return, they get federal contracts to operate detention facilities. Republicans in Congress ignore the fact that people are dying in their facilities because of inhumane conditions and potentially criminal negligence. Also, since our last hearing on this topic, ICE agents have killed 7 people, including the brutal murders of multiple American citizens. This is all occurring while DHS routinely violates federal law. In 2024, Congress passed a law that allows members of Congress to visit detention facilities without providing any prior notice. DHS has repeatedly violated this law. They have stopped members of Congress from entering detention facilities to conduct oversight visits. GEO Group and DHS have not only blocked members of Congress from entering their buildings, they have also blocked the state of New Jersey and the city of Newark from conducting their own oversight. The governor has called for the facility to be closed. The city of Newark has sued GEO. The New Jersey Attorney General successfully sued GEO so that health inspectors must be allowed into the facility. So a record number of people are dying in ICE's custody, mainly at facilities operated by GEO, and ICE is shooting and killing a record amount of people. Yet again, the chairman has failed to call any government official to testify before this subcommittee. No one from ICE, no one from CBP, no one from the DOJ, and no one from the White House. So Democratic members of Congress, like Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, have been conducting oversight themselves. In May of 2025, McIver was participating in a lawful congressional oversight visit at Delaney Hall, with the mayor of Newark and other members of Congress. During the visit, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who wants to become the AG, ordered the violent arrest of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. According to body cam footage worn by the violent federal officers, they arrested the mayor, quote, per the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. The federal agents also said that they would arrest anyone who would, quote, get in their way. The federal agents then violently assaulted the mayor, Rep. McIver, Rep. Bonnie Watson-Coleman, and Rep. Menendez. Todd Blanche is now prosecuting Rep. McIver instead of DHS and GEO officials who continue to break the law while a record amount of people are dying in their facilities or being shot and killed by DHS agents on the streets in America. This is one of the many reasons why Todd Blanche should never become the Attorney General of the United States. Last week, during his Senate confirmation hearing, the acting Attorney General said aloud what everyone here already knows, that he serves as the president's attorney and not on behalf of the American people. Blanche blocked investigations into the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. He gave Trump and his sons a super pardon that gives them lifelong protection from any investigation, audit, lawsuit, or prosecution by any federal agency for any violation of federal law. He created the $2 billion fund to pay January 6 insurrectionists for attacking the Capitol. He's protecting the pedophiles and sex traffickers in the Epstein files. He's threatening reporters with prosecution. He's lied numerous times to federal judges and refused to abide by federal court orders. And just like the Republicans on this committee, he's part of the DHS cover-up that's using American taxpayer dollars to brutalize tens of thousands of people, even killing them. And when I say people, I'm talking about citizens and otherwise. If the Republicans really wanted to know what was happening at Delaney Hall or any other detention facility, they would push for unannounced congressional and independent oversight. Since the Republicans claim to be Christian, they should open their Bibles and read Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11, that states, quote, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. I yield back. I just want to clarify one thing, because there is this perception that is consistently put out there that if you're a Democrat, you are anti-law enforcement, that you are against the police. We are not anti-law enforcement. In fact, this weekend, I will be speaking at a national convention for law enforcement. So let me be clear about something. The most pro-law enforcement thing that you could ever do is making sure that the bad apples are absolutely treated as that, because bad officers make good officers look terrible. And that is why real law enforcement has no problems when Democrats decide that they actually want to crack down and recognize that even law enforcement officers can commit crimes. Because the last time I checked, I don't understand who should be allowed to gun somebody down in the middle of the street. It's not armed and seemingly just has a little bit of melanin. And when it comes to Alex Preddy and Renee Good, that wasn't even the reasons. It was the fact that they had the audacity to stand for people that had melanin. So, excuse me, but we are not anti-law enforcement. Let's put that on the record. Secondly, I want to deal with something that the ranking member opened up with earlier when he talked about Ghislaine Maxwell. The reality is that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted by a jury of her peers and sentenced to 20 years in a federal prison. Yet somehow Ghislaine Maxwell has more privileges than people who aren't accused of going out and sexually assaulting children. This is why we have a problem, because it seems like our colleagues on the other side of the aisle continue to want to protect pedophiles while at the same time going after people, most of them who have come to this country seeking a better life, seeking the America that we sell to the rest of the world, which is the land of opportunity and the land of the free. That is what we have sold the world on, yet seemingly that's not what's happening when they arrive, when they say that in their country there is something that is causing them to need to seek asylum from the harms that are taking place in their countries. Now, let me get to my official remarks before we have to go vote. It seems like those super PAC bands are making these Republicans dance. Isn't it interesting that thousands of white people storming the U.S. Capitol and beating police officers made it home safely, but brown people posing no threat to ICE agents are suddenly killed in cold blood? The government pardoned those January 6 rioters, yet the same government is now calling the non-white people, most of whom have no criminal record, quote, terrorists and criminals. Mr. Sinha, why do you think this is?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Crockett. Look,
And I know you could talk forever, but just give me a little something.
look, I think every legal system, the criminal legal system, the immigration system is rife with racial injustice. We are seeing it play out in the streets every single day. People of color are being targeted unfairly and unjustly, while those those who are white and those who have money are being let off the hook repeatedly. That's been the story of America. That's been the story throughout our nation's history, and it's the story that continues today.
Thank you so much. To the best of your knowledge, did any of the protesters at Delaney Hall brutally beat police officers with steel pipes?
No.
What about spraying police officers with bear spray?
No.
What about tasing officers in the neck or stomping their heads?
No.
Who would you rather live next to? One of the thousands of immigrants without criminal records but are being targeted by ICE, or someone like David Daniel, a Trump supporter who was pardoned but was found to be in possession of child pornography and charged with sexual exploitation of a minor?
I would rather live next to one of the 1,000 immigrants.
Now, this Justice Department has taken the unprecedented step by criminally charging Congresswoman McIver. Why do you think the Republicans in Congress are louder about nonviolent immigrants without criminal records, but silent about the executive branch prosecuting a member of the legislative branch for conducting legitimate legislative business?
Thank you for bringing up the case against Ms. McIver. Look, every single member of Congress should be outraged by what's happening to her, regardless of party, because they are going after a congresswoman for doing her job. And that's why we at the ACLU had filed an amicus brief in support of her and calling for the charges to be dropped. They are going after a sitting congresswoman for doing her job and nothing else. And we're going to continue fighting for her.
Thank you. My next question was about your amicus brief, but I'll move on now because you already brought it up. We've already established in this hearing, and not just in this hearing, but honestly, the American people are not crazy. The American people are outraged. They're trying to pretend as if people are just going to Delaney Hall and it's simply because Delaney Hall is just, I don't know, the victim in this particular set of circumstances. But no one today, as we've gone through this hearing, has decided to say the name of Jean Brutus, a 41-year-old asylum seeker from Haiti. And for those that don't know the history of what was going on in Haiti, but there was a brutal overtaking of the government in Haiti. They actually had gang members that actually went in and brutally murdered their leader. There's a safety, just give me 2 seconds. There's a safety issue that is taking place in Haiti. So here it was, he was an asylum seeker. December 12th, 2025, he ended up dying in Delaney Hall. He had only been in Delaney Hall for 1 day. So while some may want to pretend as if there's nothing to see, in fact, we should have had a hearing that would have allowed us to get to the bottom of and potentially seek justice and make sure that other people don't die in our custody in an unwarranted and unlawful way. That is what I want to do, Mr. Chairman, and I hope that we can move forward with making sure that anyone who is taken into our immigration system, that they are taken in and they are given their day in court and they get due process, but their constitutional rights are not violated. Thank you, and I'll yield.
See, the thing here, Derek, is that people have died. People have literally died in custody. And the onus should be put on Donald Trump and his MAGA goons because death is death.
Yeah, death is death. And in fact, we don't even know what that true number is. Some in the report say 50, some say over 100 in the last 18 months. Because these citizens to also be U.S. citizens, not just immigrants. So we don't even know how many U.S. citizens who have been detained and died under ICE, and we don't know how many. Why? Because they were not afforded their 4th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States. So while everybody's up here celebrating 250 years of this country and rule of law, and they keep preaching this whole thing about the Department of Justice, cleaning things up, securing our border, meanwhile, they're demonstrating the most inhumane thing that this country is going to have a stain on them for a very long time. And here's my last point, Roland. When government facilities lock out individuals like Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman, and they have the responsibility of oversight, where they cannot go in and investigate and observe and tour places like this, where they cannot fulfill their congressional duties, that's a problem. That's showing that this administration is hiding the abuse and the death of U.S. citizens. That's wrong.
Zabor, shortly I'm going to play a comment from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine talking about what the impact is going to be on American health care if they start deporting Haitians and Venezuelans. The reason I say that, because there is a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment among some African Americans. And when people yell, close the border, I need people to understand that when we talk about immigrants or undocumented people being in this country, we're not just talking about people who are picking fruit, people who are working in fast food. Our healthcare industry, where we already have a shortage of doctors and nurses, is going to be seriously impacted. Zabor?
Definitely. Okay, I'm sorry. Definitely, when we think about it, Black immigrants have always been a target. When we think of immigration acts as far back from how we've limited Haiti and all of the Black immigrants in coming into America, this is something that happens all the time. You know, the Attorney General is not the president's personal attorney. We need congressional oversight. We need to understand that someone has to hold these people accountable. We can't allow justice to be perverted and shown partially and accepting bribes. It's like, how do you accept campaign donations and not think of the humanity that is being sacrificed at the extent of more lining your pockets with money and then trying to say that this is not a big deal or this is not something that we should be concerned about. Black immigrants are always going to be impacted more than other immigrants. It's way easier to come into this country from a place that is full of white immigrants. We saw that with what President Trump said about South Africans and just that misdirection of what's really going on with immigration.
CBS News interviewed Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, and I just want to play for you something that he said that really speaks to what we're talking about here, Rebecca. Listen to this.
We just reported, Governor, that ICE is planning to mount a series of operations, including here in Ohio, to target, arrest, and ultimately deport some of the Haitian immigrants who are set to lose their legal status here. What is your initial reaction to that?
Well, it's a mistake. It's not good for the United States, and it's not good for the state of Ohio. These are people who have helped Springfield really come back. Springfield has been making a real comeback. The Haitians who are living there and employed there, they came there to work, and they came there because there were jobs that were not being filled by other people. And so if you talk to the employers in Springfield who are employing the Haitians, they will tell you that. These are people who have opened restaurants, they've opened other businesses, they've rehabbed houses, they've created jobs as well as filled jobs.
Well, sorry.
And so to lose them and have them not be able to work anymore and possibly, taken out of this country is frankly a blow to Springfield, and it's a blow to the state of Ohio. If you look at the growth we've had in Ohio, we've had some growth. 60% of that growth has come from immigrants.
And, sir, have you received any notification, any communication from ICE about these planned operations?
I've received no notification, no.
nothing at all.
Nothing at all as far as.
Now, that wasn't the only thing that he said. He talked about, again, the impact on health care. Again, people need to understand the role that immigrants play. And again, you can be as all anti-immigrant you want to be, but all of a sudden they start deporting folks, and then you look at doctors and nurses who are not here. That means that you may put your life and be at risk because of the shortage in health care. Listen.
Why do you feel so strongly about this?
I think history tells us that this country was built with immigrants. My family came here in the 1840s, escaping the famine in Ireland. And my great-great-grandfather came to Yellow Springs and worked on the railroad, building the railroad at the time. There's always been a blend of people who are native to Ohio, have been here for generations, but also people who come in. I think that this is a great opportunity, frankly, for President Trump. He has done a phenomenal job. His administration has done a phenomenal job in taking care of a huge problem. That problem was the southern border. The southern border is virtually now sealed. It's what we wanted. It's what people expected him to do and what he's been able to do. The fact that the border has not been sealed in the past and there's been a huge problem has caused this country not to be able to have a debate about legal immigration. I think that the president has the opportunity to turn this and to say, look, it's now time. We've got our border sealed. It's now time to have a discussion with the Congress and the American people. Who do we need in this country? Who is in our economic interest to have in this country? I'll give you one statistic. In Ohio, I think 22 or 23% of our physicians are foreign-born. Our STEM workers, a large number of them are foreign-born. These are just facts, and a good debate will bring that out. We need to develop a immigration policy that is an.
Rebecca, this is a Republican governor in Ohio.
You know, Roland, the reason why this issue is so hard for a lot of politicians is that this country doesn't have the moral authority in creating its policy on immigration in this country. Like, mind you, this is stolen land that these very people have stolen, come into this country, and then try to say, oh, people can't come into this country. I mean, even in American history chose to whitewash it. Look at the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty was given to the U.S. from France to support the emancipation of enslaved Black people on this continent. Instead, through whitewashing of history, it became, oh no, the Statue of Liberty is about welcoming immigrants to this country. That's what Ellis Island is all about. That isn't the case. That isn't reality. That isn't the history of this country. And so, trigger warning for your audience, it should not be, so being in the America undocumented, your punishment should not be rape. We know that many, both men and women, boys and girls who are in ICE custody have reported being raped. We see that there is 12, 13, 14-year-old children who are now pregnant and have now been moved, according to reports, have been moved to special facilities within the ICE system. What's happening within ICE is not okay. And even if you are a Black American, you should care about this issue. You should care about the humanity. There were jokes about alligator Alcatraz in Florida. You know why that's disgusting? Because my ancestors, especially Black enslaved children and babies, were considered alligator bait. This is American history. This is the American way of doing things. And because of that, America does not have the moral clarity or authority on the issue of immigration. So where the question shall lie is the penalty of being in this country undocumented, should it be death? If the penalty should not be death, then there should actually be humane facilities, humane treatment of people who are in ICE custody. If we really care about the humanity here, then these people shouldn't be rounded up similar to a century and a half ago when you had slave catchers terrorizing Black folks all across the South and into the North. And so we need to have a conversation centered around humanity, because this is a humanitarian crisis. I understand that every modern nation state must secure its borders. Absolutely. But the conversation that we're seeing, the policies that are being put forth, isn't about protecting our borders or knowing who's in the country versus not knowing who's inside your country. Like, there shouldn't be porous borders. No country should have porous borders. But that's not what this is centered about. Instead, this is centered about removing Black and brown people from this country so this nation can be a white country.
I also want people to think about this here. I saw something from Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day. And I need people to understand what's going on here. There is a literal dumbing down of America. I'm going to say this, and Trump has already said it. MAGA believes it. They actually want dumb Americans. They do not want smart people. And when Charlie Kirk, all these people are like, oh, you mean tell me we can't find Americans who can do that? Okay. Trying to find the next generation of American scientists and whatever, that's a 20, 25-year process. So if you don't confront what's happening in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, graduate, that ain't happening. And so there is an attack on science. There's an attack on having smart people. Y'all, the long ball is China and other countries are watching us and they're going, thank you for choosing to be stupid. Listen to this.
There's an intellectual vacuum, scientific vacuum that is descending upon the United States. And that has consequences. I'm not here to tell people who to vote for or what to vote for or who your candidate is. It has nothing to do with this. It has to do with an if-then statement. If you're okay with the United States losing its scientific leadership, especially in the physical sciences, if you're okay with that, you will get the country you voted for. And that country is one where we will no longer innovate because our greatest innovations are based on the frontier science that's way beneath them, hidden from the daily news reports, hidden from what you see and hear about as you surf the internet. That goes away. We lose the foundation of our innovations, and the United States fades on the world stage. And they will do things that will impress us, just as we did things my entire life growing up that impressed the world. We went to the moon. Nobody else was close to going to the moon. As a scientist, it kind of doesn't matter who's making the advances because the fields of science move forward. But as an American, I like baseball, I eat hot dogs, and I eat apple pie. Yeah, I'm American. It kind of hurts to watch this hard-earned leadership evaporate. We will be less secure, less healthy, and less wealthy because some community of people who influence what this country is do not see the value of science deep below all of that.
Zabor, he nailed it. These people really love dumbness. And MAGA is feasting off of this literal stupidity.
It's a war on our intellectual abilities, from how you're attacking the education system, from how you're attacking universities with funding, with just the ability to be free of thought. Institutions are supposed to be places where we can question everything, create new knowledge. If we can't have the scientists in place to where we can make these discoveries, when you look at the impact that Black inventors have had on America and the progression of America and how far we've came and how we've been able to be global leaders, people of color have always led the forefronts of these things. We have been the reason of why America is constantly pushed forward. So when you look at things like upholding and uplifting January 6th attackers and terrorists, and you look at how science is being impacted and how we're not We're not thinking about agriculture and climate control and environmental justice and all of these things. We are dismantling these programs, taking funding from the federal programs like USAID that sustains us and that creates all of this research and this knowledge that makes us leaders. We have to do something about it. You think that you are impacting Black and brown people from going to university because Black women were the #1 educated group of people. You think that's the case when in reality, you're actually making, for lack of a better word, America go to hell in a handbasket very quickly by taking away all of the things that have made us great.
The thing that is crazy, Rebecca, if you even think about the atomic bomb, go to my iPad. This is from nps.gov. It was literally refugees who pushed America to advance in the building of the nuclear bomb. I'm like, but again, though, MAGA is so fixated, and Trump knows the game. He knows his people are not smart. He knows they can't read. He plays to them being dumb. And I remember years ago I was on CNN with John Avlon and Anderson Cooper, and John's like, yeah, Roland, I'm not going to call the American voters dumb. I said, I will. He's playing on their dumbness. This is a Republican governor of Ohio. Ohio has gone deep red over NAFTA and other issues. And guess what? All those broke white people in the Midwest who are sitting here saying, oh, Trump understands me. No, he doesn't. He's playing you. I keep saying it. These broke white people couldn't even walk through the lobby of Mar-a-Lago or any of his hotels. And he's playing them, and they don't even realize it.
Look, Roland, it's not just broke white people in the Midwest. It's white people across this country, whether they're broke or not. A lot of the hedge fund managers are white, and a lot of them are white men. And statistically, at least 75% of white men support Donald Trump. So let's just, I'm pushing back here because sometimes I hear this from a lot of white liberals who try to say, oh, well, those are just ignorant, dumb white people. No, this is white people in this country.
Oh, no, I agree. But the reason I was specific to Ohio, because this was Mike DeWine, their governor, who's sitting here going like, yo, this is our economy. And the white folks in Springfield, they should have been the ones pushing back the hardest against J.D. Vance and Donald Trump by saying, y'all know what the hell y'all talking about.
But Mike have a lot of nerve, too, because guess who he supports? This isn't like Donald Trump just showed up yesterday and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is who this man said he was. He's doing the things he said he was going to do. So the Mike DeWine's great. Glad you're joining the party. But, okay, why don't you do good stuff in the state of Ohio that you could do now while you are still the executive of Ohio? So I'm not about to give him, points. I'm not suggesting that you are. I'm just making it plain. This is not the time to give Mike DeWine points.
Oh, no. I'm not giving...
He's a part of this issue, too.
Right, Derek, I'm not giving him points, but again, this is a perfect example. You supported the dude, now you're realizing you're about to get screwed in your state, and your economy is about to tank because of this idiot at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
You're exactly right. In fact, they knew about the plan before the plan was executed, Roland. We all discovered Project 2025 back in 2023. And in Project 2025, it was very clear that their objectives were 4 things: to make us dumb, poor, sick, and powerless. Dumb, poor, sick, and powerless. And they were going after everyone, not just poor white people. They were going after everyone. They were very clear. They said, and what did they do? The very first thing, they started dismantling the Department of Education. They just took an axe handle to it. And then they said, we're going to make you poor. They're going after our money, and they're going to enrich themselves. We got a trillionaire now. And then they said, we're going to make you sick. And just CDC said today that measles outbreak is the highest it has been in 35 years. That's getting not just white people, that's getting us too, our children. And then they say, we're gonna make you powerless. We're gonna go after your civil rights, your human rights, your constitutional rights. And so they're executing exactly what they told us in 2023, what they're going to do if they get back in power and exercise Project 2025 to make us dumb, to make us poor, to make us sick, and to make us powerless. So we should not be surprised.
Yep, absolutely. All right, folks, lots more to talk about, including tax and Medicare Plan D. We're going to break that down, as well as protecting this next election. Lots to discuss. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to support our work, do me a favor. Go to, you want to give to us via Cash App. Use a Stripe QR code. You see it right here. It's also for credit cards. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com for ways to donate. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
Let me ask you a question. Why do so many people seem to think they know black men so well? What they think we want, what they think we need. Hell, they even tried to tell us why and how we voted, but never had a conversation with us. Never asked us how we felt, what brings us joy, what makes us angry, what makes us scared. How do we live? That's what this show is about. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. We can speak for ourselves. This will be a show where we bring brothers on that you don't see on every other talk show.
Nope.
Brothers that are doing work in local communities with black men for black communities. We're going to hear each other and try to understand so perhaps we can move forward together. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us.
Nope.
What we need is each other. No translation, right here on the Black Star Network. Check it out.
How you doing? My name is Mark Carey, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Deep into it, like pasteurized milk without the 2%. We getting deep. You want to turn that shit off? We're doing an interview, motherfucker.
Play the music. The E1. All right, give me a second. Yo, we're 96 days from the midterm elections. With attacks on voting rights and the attention on voter fraud, many organizations are positioning themselves to fight back. The Election Protection Coalition is coordinating trained volunteers and professionals to make sure everyone gets the right to vote. Kabia Factory is the national coordinator for the Election Protection Coalition. She joins us right now. I'm glad to have you on the show. All right, so real basic, how y'all protecting us?
Well, we are a national coalition comprised of over 300 plus voting rights organizations. We partner with the Legal Defense Fund, ACLU, to deploy poll monitors on foot during Election Day and early voting to make sure that election laws are in compliance, to make sure that polling locations are not perpetuating voter intimidation, as well as a hotline. We have a hotline, 866-OUR-VOTE, which is an election protection hotline that anybody can call at any time for any questions that they might have about voting, as well as to report any instances of discrimination that we are happy to litigate and to bring forth to the public.
For a number of years, y'all partnered with the Tom Joyner Morning Show when I did commentaries there, and that was a partnership there. So explain to people, just give us a couple of examples of the kind of stuff y'all have to deal with doing early voting or actually on Election Day coming to the aid of folks.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Calais is a great example, right? What we just saw at the Supreme Court, where the Voting Rights Act was basically gutted, right? Maps being redrawn confuse voters. Voters know their precincts, they know their polling locations, but when these abrupt changes happen, early voting, we see a high call volume of especially Black and elderly voters who have questions and who are confused. We also see poll workers engaging with misconduct, right? Engaging in partisan activities, intimidating voters as they're casting their ballot. So to us, it's extremely important that elections remain free and fair and safe in the state of Texas, as well as, which is where I'm based out of I'm calling today from Texas, but across the country, right? Because the foundation of our democracy, these seeds were sowed by our ancestors. And so we want to protect that, as well as the vote of anybody who wants to cast their ballot.
And here's a perfect example. There are people who might show up at the wrong location. And you've had some poll workers who didn't even tell them where it actually was. I've heard stories where they said, hey, I'm not obligated to do so. And so now that voters like, well, man, where do I go? Who do I call? And to your point, a lot of elderly voters. I remember I was in Dallas. I remember there was a video, so people tried to make jokes about it when I was shedding tears when people were voting. Because, man, it was like 6 a.m. They were in line. It was a massive line, and it was cold. And I remember the day before, I was getting ready to do the show at Friendship West Baptist Church, which is a voting location. And it was an old brother. He drove up slowly, and he was like, young man, he said, is this where voting is going to be tomorrow? I said, yes. He said, now what time again? My man was like doing he was pre-gaming it. He was laying it out. I remember another year, Melody Campbell, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, they were doing phone banking, and they were calling folks in Florida, and they hit this 90-year-old Black woman. She said, baby, y'all need to call me. She said, my son is coming to pick me up tomorrow at 9 a.m. He gonna take me to vote and bring me back home. So y'all need to call somebody else who ain't voting. I'm good. But there are others who, when these changes drop, they literally don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, Roland, I love to think about what our ancestors like Fannie Lou Hamer would have done with a resource like 866-OUR-VOTE, right? On the other side of that hotline are volunteers as well as civil rights attorneys, like I said, who are ready to escalate that issue. But what we also do at the Election Protection Coalition is if we have long lines and voting machines are reported to not work, we will file litigation in that county to ensure that the polling location hours are extended, et cetera. But to your point, voting is a tradition for the Black community, right? I love to challenge myths about Black folks being apathetic when it comes to voting. And even if we have every right to be, right? There are systemic flaws left and right, especially under this administration. But Election Protection, 866-OUR-VOTE, and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law do not want anybody to hang their heads, right? We are fighting every day to protect our democracy. And we do believe that the foundation of our democracy will ensue.
Questions from the panel. Rebecca, you first.
Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Fair Election Center, I'm president and CEO. We do work in coalition with you all. Very excited of being in community, especially with the election protection hotline this cycle. So one of the things that we're doing at Fair Election Center, we hire students on campus. We call them Democracy Fellows. We are making sure that our hundreds of Democracy Fellows are trained on, are plugging into their state tables, are trained with election protection so they could sign up for a shift, especially for the polling locations on or near campus. So what do you have to say to them about participating in the elections this year?
So firstly, thank you so much for your partnership. We greatly, greatly value your partnership and everything that you do with election protection. The youth vote is the future. We are so excited about Gen Z and the next generation, right? I strongly believe that they have these values instilled, and the generation of technology that the next generations have grown up under, I believe will be fruitful, right, when it comes to the vote. So for young student voters who want to get involved, or anybody who's watching today, you can visit 866ourvote.org, where you can click on a volunteer link, where we will connect you to an election protection coalition in a number of states where there's programming, right? I think my favorite thing about election protection is that the states lead, right? So it depends on the state law and the Valley, right, that is legally adept. So thank you so much for recruiting students. But what I also want to tell students is we need you, right? We need to pass the baton. We need to ensure that democracy, as well as the practice and the importance of voting, that it remains sacred.
Derek.
Kamaya, really appreciate the work that you all are doing. Appreciate the organization. But I'm a state legislator here in Georgia, and I would like to say we're ground zero when it comes to voter suppression.
Yes.
And what I've witnessed, at least in the last 10 years or so, that voter suppression is evolving. It's more dynamic, and it's not disappearing. I mean, the modern day voter suppression is not about poll taxes and literacy tests like it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so I'm more curious about how you all can partner with a state like Georgia to help us deal with voter suppression on the front end. I mean, they go after, before we even start casting a ballot, they're targeting purges. I mean, we've purged over 1 million people here in Georgia. They changed polling places, as Roland mentioned, consolidated at the last minute. They're intimidating. I mean, heck, the Trump administration sent the FBI down here and raid one of our largest hub in Fulton County. They're intimidating our poll workers. So what kind of work that you all can do to assist us in this effort that they're doing voter suppression before the doors are even open?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for the work that you do as an elected official. I will say we have a strong, badass coalition in Georgia, right? Georgia is one of those historic states where we see election protection in a high call volume. What I would say is voter education should be a 365-day of the year effort, right? We need legislators and elected officials like you to help us promote this hotline. But further, we need to also strengthen our relationships with election judges, with poll workers, right? Making sure that we're all on the same page about changes to law, and changes to the legal landscape as it pertains specifically to elections. So I think that I know first that voter education is super important. Secondly, promoting 866-OUR-VOTE, right, would be a extreme help. I'll also share with you too, right, in a state like Georgia that is actually extremely diverse, just like Texas, this hotline is available in different languages, right? Because bottom line, this fight is about access. This executive order that Trump just put forth a few days ago with the mail-in ballots, right? That's about access. They don't want folks who live with a disability, who might be elderly, who might be a single parent. They don't want them to have access to their ballot. So it's important that we partner with elected officials like you to get out the word about election protection and 866-OUR-VOTE, and make sure that we promote the hotline in other languages such as Spanish, Arabic, and Asian languages as well.
Zamora.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing. I love the Black Voter Survivor Guide that's on 866 Our Vote. You mentioned access and individuals with disabilities, and I want to know what specific measures is the Election Protection Coalition taking to ensure voters with disabilities can access things like curbside voting and other accommodations on Election Day and just be more knowledgeable. You know, I saw that there was a voting plan, but I didn't see anything really about disability voting planning so that people can know to plan for those accommodations on Election Day. What are y'all doing about that?
Absolutely. Thank you. I love this question because shout out to Disability Rights Network. They are one of our National Election Protection Steering Committee partners, right? They have several chapters throughout the country that we partner with. But one of the major things that election protection does specifically pertaining to disability is that we deploy poll monitors during early voting and Election Day. These poll monitors physically go out to polling locations to ensure that there is ADA compliance, right? That there is curbside voting, that signage, that you can see the signage, that it is accessible, as well as the option of seating for voters that may not be able to stand, right? We also get calls into the hotline about people who might be in the hospital and want to know how to cast their ballot that day, right? Want to know if they're eligible to vote based on either giving birth or having a medical emergency, right? The threshold of disabilities is large and wide, but we really count on our poll monitors, our volunteers who are boots on the ground, right? Ensuring that these polling locations are in compliance. So what that looks like is they'll go to a polling location, they'll see that something is out of compliance. They will call the hotline and let us know that this is an issue. And we, the civil rights litigation attorneys, right, on the other end of that hotline, will call the election judge directly and say, hey, you're out of compliance. We are with the Election Protection Coalition. You need to fix this, right? In some cases, that can look like litigation that we might file to ensure that this does not happen again.
All right, come on, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Folks, let's talk about Georgia. The results for the Georgia 13th Congressional District special election are in, and voters will head back to the polls for a runoff next month. Tuesday's election was held to fill the seat left vacant following the death of longtime Congressman David Scott. Scott's daughter, Marcy Scott, emerged with the top vote but fell short of the majority needed to win outright. Scott took 46% of the vote, followed by Democrat Everton Blair, 37.4%. Republican Cesar Gonzalez received 8.7%. Republican Faith Park got 4.7%. Democrat Carlos Moore got 3.1%. Scott and Blair will face off in a runoff election on August 25th. The winner will serve out the remainder of David Scott's term as Congress for the rest of the year until the new Congress is sworn in January. All right, let me go to a break. I'm having issues with microphones. I need to switch it out. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
Let me ask you a question. Why do so many people seem to think they know black men so well, but they think we want what they think we need? Hell, they even tried to tell us why and how we voted, but never had a conversation with us. Never asked us how we felt, what brings us joy, what makes us angry, what makes us scared. How do we live? That's what this show is about. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. We can speak for ourselves. This will be a show where we bring brothers on that you don't see on every other talk show.
Nope.
Brothers that are doing work in local communities with black men for black communities. We're going to hear each other and try to understand so perhaps we can move forward together. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us.
Nope.
What we need is each other. No translation, right here on the Black Star Network. Check it out.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Afroman, best known for the song Before I Got High, is suing the deputy he says stole money from his home. Afroman's lawsuit is against former Adams County, Ohio Sheriff Sergeant Brian Newland, who was one of the 7 deputies who filed a defamation lawsuit against the rapper in 2023. That case was over Afroman's music videos and social media posts that used footage from a 2022 raid on his home. The deputies sought almost $4 million in damages and argued that Afroman's content portrayed them in a false light. However, in March, the jury rejected that. They sided with Afroman, finding the rapper did not defame them. Under Afroman's lawsuit, he seeks damages under 4 claims, requesting at least $25,000 per claim, including malicious prosecution, abusive process, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and tortious interference with contract. Afroman is also seeking attorney's fees, lost income, emotional distress damages, punitive damages, and demanding a jury trial. Look, I'll be honest, the reason I love this lawsuit, Derek, is because he's holding them accountable for their actions. And the bottom line is they were pissed off. The judge was ticked off that he won. And his whole deal is, okay, where my money at?
Yeah, listen, Roland, I love this story too. You can't kick down a man's door, find 0 drugs, you find absolutely nothing, misplace his money, and expect no accountability because he put you on Front Street. I love this story. More importantly, this demonstrates to the people that you have rights in this country still. And we can hold folks accountable. Just because they're law enforcement doesn't mean that they're right. You have some bad apples, as Jasmine Crockett mentioned earlier. You got some bad apples. And so we got to deal with them bad apples. Those who doing police intimidation, those who misabuse that shield that they continue to hide behind. And so I love this story, and I appreciate the fact that the Afroman didn't back down, and he received justice.
I still laugh, I still laugh with the whole lawsuit and how these deputies were just so angry with the lyrics, and he turned the tables on them and won. I hope he wins this too.
His level of petty. His level of petty is everything. At the end of the day, you play with me, play silly game, win silly prizes, right? He did exactly what he needed to do. And the fact that he is smart enough to fight it to the absolute end, they getting what they deserve. You think that you can keep treating Black people like they're not going to do nothing back. No, we know our rights and we going to fight to the end. And we going to embarrass you and we going to do it way funnier than y'all ever could because we know how to roast with the best of them. And he's talented, so there's that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, y'all, 40-year-old white Pennsylvania man is charged with leaving racist and threatening voicemails for Black Delaware County Sheriff Sadiq Kamara last week. Sean Keenan is facing several felony counts, including terroristic threats, ethnic intimidation, harassment, and disorderly conduct. On July 20th, the Delaware County Sheriff's Office released this voicemail from Sheriff Kamara's official telephone line from a couple of days before.
Death to Islam. I'm going to find you. I'm going to hunt you. I will find you. I will break you.
Investigators said in the criminal complaint that they cross-referenced the number that left the voicemails and traced them back to Keenan's work and professional phones. When questioned by police, Keenan admitted to making threats and using racist language. Despite admitting to the racist attack, Keenan maintains that the voicemails did not target Kamara and came in response to a possible scam call. He was arrested and charged on Tuesday. His bail is set at $100,000. See, it doesn't pay to be a racist. See, now you got to hire an attorney. Now you got to sit here and post bail. Now everybody know what's going on. Let's go to Wake County, North Carolina, where a jury handed a Black woman the largest medical malpractice verdict for a certain type of birth injury. Laurel Brown and her son were awarded $18.2 million for the injuries he sustained during delivery in 2019. The family's attorney says a doctor with Wake Med Hospital in Raleigh was negligent and permanently injured the now 70-year-old. During delivery, attorneys say Naquan Lake got stuck in the birth canal when the doctor used an improper maneuver, resulting in Lake's injury. 2 of the 5 nerves were ripped from his spinal cord, a third was partially ripped, and the remaining 2 were torn, leaving his left hand and arm completely shorter and smaller than his right. The jury agreed with the complaint that the doctor broke the standard of care and could have acted differently to avoid the permanent injury. All right, folks, an anti-affirmative action group, let's just say one of these white MAGA groups, they're suing the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation over one of its scholarships. The American Alliance for Equal Rights filed a federal lawsuit in April claiming that the requirement for the CBCF's 2026 Spouses Education Scholarship are discriminatory and violate a section of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The Spouses Education Scholarship, which has awarded more than $11 million to Black students since its creation in 1988, is open only to Black students who reside in a district represented by a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. Attorney Alfonso David, president and CEO of the Global Black Economic Forum, is representing the CBCF. He joins us right now. Alfonso, glad to have you back on the show. Let's be real clear. This is what we keep laying out is the continuation of the GOP's war on Black America. This is Ed Blum and these other groups. What they're doing is they're constantly attacking African Americans. What they're doing is these are the people who are behind the affirmative action case. And they're using civil rights laws that were passed to help Black folks. They're now using those against us.
Roland, that's exactly right. This is a lawsuit that is looking for an injury that doesn't exist. So the plaintiffs have filed a lawsuit against the Congressional Black Caucus against the 2026 scholarship. Now, to be clear, the 2026 scholarship program is open to all qualified applicants, regardless of race. And also it's important to recognize that no one has been selected by the CBCF. So the lawsuit was filed for a program that has yet to select any awardees. This is simply a lawsuit searching for an injury. The CBCF, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, as many people may know, has been around for more than 50 years. And they have been awarding scholarships for more than 40 of those years. And they have been awarding scholarships for quite successfully to students in need, and they plan on continuing to do so. Ed Blum and others are seeking to essentially attack them for doing something that is entirely lawful, which is why we are defending them in court along with our co-counsel.
So what's interesting here is they make these claims that it's for Blacks only. So when you say it's open to anyone, What does that mean? So any resident of the district can apply for that scholarship?
Yes. The application itself does not restrict someone who wants to apply for the scholarship who lives in that district. And the application is quite clear, and you can sort of go through the application online and see it. Yet, I think the applicants or the plaintiffs in our case are suggesting that they would be restricted from getting the scholarship. But once again, keep in mind, they have not been rejected. No one has been rejected. This lawsuit, as you mentioned, Roland, is part of a larger pattern. Scholarships and opportunity programs can disappear, not because some court rules them unlawful, but because there's litigation. And litigation is costly. And litigation is meant to deter you from doing work that may be entirely lawful. So that is the policy that they're using to pressure these organizations, including the CBCF. They're not using necessarily anything that's changed in the law. There is no law that prohibits the CBCF from conducting this program. This case is also testing, I think, whether Black institutions may speak honestly about their missions without having their speech treated as some evidence of discrimination. Now, whether you're a charitable organization, and we know many charitable organizations that are providing services and resources and grants and programs, the charitable organizations we're seeing that are being sued all happen to be Black organizations. We're not seeing other organizations be sued for conducting charitable grant-making programs or internship programs or scholarship programs. The organizations we're seeing that are being sued are Black organizations, and that's an important feature here, where this is an ongoing pattern, and this is something that we have to address, which is why we're defending them.
Questions from my panel. Derek, you first.
Alfonso, thank you for your work on this effort. And it's just so incredulous that they're trying to weaponize the 14th Amendment against us. But I digress. But this lawsuit, Alfonso, correct me if I'm wrong, it has if we expand the aperture, this lawsuit is aiming to intimidate corporations and nonprofit organizations, anybody that's dealing with or want to contribute to diversity and equity as it relates to our future, our Black youth. Heck, a member of Congress is trying to even do away. She says the Congressional Black Caucus shouldn't even exist, right? And so this is a larger play for them. My question is, how do we combat this, though? Right? I mean, they're coming after us in every aspect, and as a legislator, we're the largest Black caucus in the United States. There's 72 of us in Georgia, right? We're 6 more than the Congressional Black Caucus. So we're the largest Black. So if they do this after the Congressional Black Caucus, again, Georgia is ground zero, Alfonso. They're going to come after us next. How do we deal with this?
Yeah, there are a few things that I think we have to do. One, we cannot normalize this. We cannot allow them to completely subvert the law. And then what the case here reverts around a law that was passed in 1866. It's called Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act. And that law was passed in 1866 after Reconstruction, when Black people were free. And we all know that during slavery, we were not allowed to enter into contracts. We were considered property. So we could not purchase a car or enter into a mortgage. We weren't allowed to do any of that. So this statute was passed in order to allow Black people to enter into contracts in the same way that white people had historically been able to enter into contracts. And what they're doing here is taking that statute and arguing that the scholarship application is a contract. And that when you apply for the scholarship in their mind, they're only limited to Black people, which is wrong because there's no restriction based on race. For the 2026 scholarship, the eligibility requirements do not restrict applicants based on race, but they're arguing that this law should be used to restrict the Congressional Black Caucus from continuing their program. So one, we have to make sure we're not normalizing these arguments to suggest that we can no longer do work that has been entirely legal. Second, I think it's important that we collaborate across the board. What we can't do is operate in silos. We work with partners both on the domestic, in terms of regional litigation, national litigation, international litigation. We're seeing this also outside of the United States. We're seeing programs that are being tapped in London. We're seeing programs that are being tapped for Black people, or that have been used to benefit Black people, or organizations that have missions that have been focused on people of color. So we have to make sure that we don't normalize these arguments. We have to fight back. I know it's difficult because we're seeing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. The goal is to beat us down and make us believe that there are no options. But we do have the options. We do have the Constitution. We do have these statutes. We do have regulation. And we have to hold them accountable. Otherwise, we're going to lose our democracy. And I know some of us argue sometimes that we're pretty close if we haven't already lost it. But we still have the Constitution. We still have these statutes on the books. And if we're going to treat Black organizations differently than every other organization in this country, then we have a much larger problem. So this, again, is a charitable organization. Think about every other charitable organization out there that's providing services and resources. They're not being sued. The Black organizations are being sued, and so we have to fight back.
Zamora?
Thank you so much for the work you're doing. I love the points you made. And I'm thinking of from an equity standpoint, like these lawsuits could really have an impact on the efforts to increase educational opportunities for students that are in these marginalized communities. I'm thinking of all of the scholarships that are on websites like bold.org that have, their requirements are maybe you have to have a physical disability, or maybe you need to be a twin. How does lawsuits like this impact those other scholarships for those other marginalized groups of individuals?
So I think one of the other members on the panel mentioned this a few minutes ago, that what we're seeing is an attempt to basically affect how corporations or other organizations effectively function. So they're taking a decision that was issued by the U.S. Supreme Court in the Harvard versus North Carolina case. It's commonly referred to SSFA case. And they're looking to take that case and apply it across the board to every single sector. They're trying to apply it to education in every sector, in every segment. They're trying to apply it to grant making. They're trying to apply it to employment. They're trying to apply it to minority and women-owned business programs. They're trying to take this idea that race-conscious programming, or programming that is focused on specific missions that are targeting specific populations that have been marginalized, is unlawful. But the reality here is they don't deny the problem. In all of our cases, they don't deny that Black and brown students are basically being afforded less opportunities. They don't deny that in venture capitalism, $288 billion has been allocated, but only less than 1% goes to Black people. They don't deny that in contracting, 94% of the contracts are going to white men. So they don't deny the problem. What they're looking to do is take away the solutions that organizations, institutions, corporations have tried to implement in order to address the problem. And that's what we have to hold them accountable for. We can't say, oh, we see the problem, but we're going to take away the solution, because this will have a trickle-down impact. It will not only affect Black people. If we allow these principles to stand, it will apply to every other marginalized group where programs have been created to address systemic inequities. And so this is not just about the Congressional Black Caucus. This is about the First Amendment. This is about every charitable organization that has a program. This is about our ability to make sure that we can address systemic, long-standing inequities that have existed in this country for decades.
Rebecca?
So, Alfonso, when are we going to, Black folks, when are we going to start attacking a lot of the legacy programs that are based upon legacies of who are able to go go to certain universities, certain colleges, receive certain benefits and grants and monies and investment. And it's only white folks because, these were the people who were able to do all these things in society while Black people were banned from doing so. So when are Black people going to start attacking that? Because if they're going to attack us, then, turnabout is fair play, right?
Turnaround is certainly fair play, and there was a threat of a lawsuit with respect to legacy programs at colleges and universities. I need to check to see where we are in that program, but I know that folks are considering filing lawsuits, not only in terms of legacy programs, but also think about this. When you look at large corporations or you look at boards of directors, in most cases, they are white men. We don't see a lot of women. We don't see a lot of people of color. We don't see a lot of, certainly not a lot of Black people.
In fact, Alfonso, since the attacks on DEI, there's of the new board members, I saw one report where it said 66% of the new board members were white men.
Exactly. So if we are actually focused on merit, I've always asked folks to explain this to me. How is it that we have Black women, Black women are more educated than any other demographic group in this country? If that's true, and we're focused on merit, then we should have more than half of the companies in this country being run by Black women. We don't have that. So what we need are people who are willing to step forward to file lawsuits challenging some of these programs. We have 7 plaintiffs in our lawsuit in Texas, where we sued the state of Texas and the controller of Texas for taking away certifications for every company that is owned by a woman and every company that is owned by a person of color. We filed that lawsuit. That lawsuit is affecting more than 16,000 businesses in the state of Texas.
That is for people who don't know, that's the Texas HUB program, historically underutilized businesses, that was actually created under Republican Governor George W. Bush, was one of his hallmark pieces, and now you have the MAGA Republicans, Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, getting rid of the exact same program.
Yes, and that's why we filed that lawsuit. But to the point that we were sort of getting to earlier, we have to make sure that our communities have the courage to stand up. If we think someone else is going to do it, we may be lost. We have to make sure if you're affected, if you believe that you're going to be affected, stand up. That's what we're seeing on the other side, and we have to make sure that we marshal the resources to push back as much as they're pushing against us. We have to push back because these laws have to exist for all of us. They can't just exist for them and not for marginalized communities, for Black people, for women, for people of color generally.
Lori Parks asked this question in our chat. She says, if I am a private donor who wants to give away a scholarship for someone to go to an HBCU college, I can't individually give my money away to whoever I want to give it away to. Her question is important. So the question is, can she as an individual do that? Because I know Auburn, University of Texas, other programs, Alabama, they've gotten rid of scholarships where they were endowed that were supposed to go to Black students. University of Texas, that was a Hispanic dentist who created a program to create more Hispanic dentists. And then the university said, hey, we can't award this scholarship. So those are the state schools. What about an individual?
Yeah. So, yes, you have the right to provide your financial resources in any way that you deem it appropriate. Every single year, for some of us, we make donations at the end of the year. We pick the organizations that we want to donate to, right? Sometimes you want to go to Goodwill. Sometimes you want to go to the Salvation Army. Sometimes you pick the organization that may be aligned with your personal values. You have a First Amendment right to do that. It's called a freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of association. All of those things are protected. And they're even more protected when you're a charitable organization. So if you decide to create a charitable organization with an express mission, and your mission is to address poverty, or your mission is to address systemic inequities in your community, you have a First Amendment right to try to address those problems. And when we are being attacked, like the Congressional Black Caucus, for Essential, which is a not-for-profit charitable organization, when they try to address problems that have systemically affected the Black people, and they're being restricted from doing so, then think about how that's going to affect every single person who wants to actually use their money and express their First Amendment rights by giving it away to people that they deem appropriate. That's one of the key issues that we're fighting back against in this case, because there is a constitutional protection that all charitable organizations have and that we as individuals have when we try to give our money away to third parties.
I have been yelling, hollering, and screaming since he got inaugurated, Alfonso, that they want to defund Black America, that they are, excuse me, Al has been kicking my butt, they are going after every facet of Black people. And I've been saying, y'all, they're going after education, they're going after health, they're going after civil rights, they're going after economics, they're going after social justice, all of it. Last year, Biden-Harris, Black-owned businesses got $10 billion in federal contracts. Only 2%, but it was the highest ever. Already under Trump, that's now fallen to 1.2%. So we are moving towards losing close to $5 billion. They are targeting health grants, which then means that's NGOs, the nonprofit community. There's not been a single nonprofit that I know of, Alfonso, that has not been impacted by the anti-DEI. The reality is, Richelieu Dennis founded the entity that you work for, Essence Festival, Black Women's Expo. I can go down the line of how many events where companies said, we would love to do something. I mean, the International African American Museum, we had the CEO on. Companies have said, if y'all could just hold on for 2 years. They got a $6.5 million shortfall. They're furloughing workers. And the companies are like, hopefully he's gone in 2 years. So people need to understand that this is real. We are not, this ain't no game. This ain't no exercise. This is real. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to lock in these laws and rulings that makes it even harder. If a Democrat wins in 2028, it's so much work that's gonna have to be done to roll back to 2024 because of the attacks that they have instigated. And people need to really realize this is hitting every facet of Black America, whether you can see it or not.
Roland, I could not have said it more eloquently than you have. And I think we all have to collectively wake up when we hear about these cases, when we hear about these lawsuits. Sometimes we think, well, that's not about me. That's about them. That's about this organization. That's about that organization. That's about that contractor. It is about you. They're going after all of the services, the resources, the programs that have either benefited people of color or looking to address systemic inequities. And if we don't push back, we will lose so much more than you think we will, which is why this lawsuit, this defense of the Congressional Black Caucus is so important, and all of the other cases that we work on. Because if we live in a democracy and we think that this Constitution should apply equally to all of us, then we have to fight for it. Because if we don't, to Roland's point, we may find ourselves, maybe the election will change the landscape, but we will have court decisions that we have to live with, even with a new administration. So that's why we have to fight back for the rule of law and to make sure that there's equal application of the law to all of us.
Indeed, indeed. And we do have to fight back, and we can't be scared. And Alfonso, last point, there's some civil rights leaders who are upset with me because I've said that too many of our groups have been quiet. There's a book that I'm working on that challenges Black organizations. And what I've been saying, too many of our groups were silent in 2025. Folks were in shock by what was happening. They were still upset. People were saying, oh my God, I'm tired. I'm burnt out because Kamala lost. And I said, man, y'all better see what the hell they're doing. And we've been signaling the call in terms of what's going on. And I just need people to really wake up. This thing is real. It is happening, and the next generation is going to ask a question, Alfonso. When the shit was hitting the fan, where were you? And when I hear folk, and that's millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and I'm not picking on them, I'm saying fact. When I hear people say, Alfonso, we're not our ancestors, I go, you're right. You're not. We got to fight. I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you all.
Folks, Congressman Jim Clyburn did an interview with Vox, and it rankles some feathers because he spoke about black voters letting Vice President Kamala Harris down. Listen to this.
What lessons did you take from the Biden administration? Like
What
political lessons. Like, was there any political lesson you think there is to take from an administration whose central goal was to stop Donald Trump's return? And here we are.
And he stopped it.
I mean, you stopped it and enabled, I think some would argue.
Well, when the white vote turned out 71% 2 years ago, and the black vote turned out 59%, you tell me whose fault that is.
I guess
only 59% of African Americans went to the polls 2 years ago.
It's tough. For me personally, to blame black voters for the last election more than it is to blame President Joe Biden.
That's the fact. It wasn't Joe Biden on the ticket. It was Kamala Harris on the ticket.
For 107 days after he decided
Kamala
to
Harris on the ticket.
I guess I just wanted to see if there was a clear political lesson you took from that moment and whether you think something applies in this kind of larger democratic rethink after. But I hear you. You're saying that you think it was a media problem. It was a branding problem. It was a candidate problem?
I didn't say that. The media had nothing to do with that 59%. If that 59% had been 69%, she would have won.
I guess, so is the argument that black people let Kamala Harris down?
Oh, in many instances, absolutely. If you don't show up to vote, what are you doing?
Is there no valid reason why black voters could not have felt heard by the last Democratic election? Is there no valid reason that they would have?
There might be. I'd like to know what it is.
Okay. I forgot the name. Is it Alstead? What's that brother's name? Rebecca, what's his name?
Wesley Alstead.
Yeah, give me his name. So, Alstead, okay, all right. I think he used to work for the New York Times, and now he's with Vox. Okay. Rebecca, Derek, and the board. Here's why I think that brother has no clue what Clyburn's talking about. What Clyburn said is what the hell I've been saying for a long time, and which we've been saying as well. That is, there are more white people in America. There are more white people in America, which means that in the places where we have a lot of black people, we have to over-index. Well, Clyburn is saying now, and I've been using, you heard Clyburn say 71% of whites. I've been using that 70% marker where I say that should be the minimum number of a black turnout. And I'll say it, I don't care what it is. I don't care what state, I don't care what city, it needs to be 70%. And I've been saying that because I look at, go to my iPad. So this is the results of the election 2024. So I look at Michigan. Trump got 2,816,636 votes, 49.73%. Kamala Harris got 553,000 votes. But Trump wins by 80,103 votes. So I'm gonna look at Georgia. So if I do the math here, in Georgia, Trump got 2,663,117 votes. Harris got 2,548,017 votes. So Trump wins Georgia by 115,000. Then if I go to Wisconsin, okay, Milwaukee. So Trump wins Wisconsin, 1,697 votes and 626. Harris gets 1,668 votes and 229. So Trump wins Wisconsin by 29,397 votes. I think North Carolina was around 180,000. So if you start doing the math and you start looking at how many blacks didn't vote in Georgia in 2024, how many blacks didn't vote in North Carolina, and you see it right here. Georgia was 16 electoral college votes. North Carolina was 16 electoral college votes. Wisconsin was 10 electoral college votes. Okay? So that's 42 electoral college votes. All right? And so when you start looking at math, we have to be maximizing our power. Now, what I believe Clyburn should have also said is that not that black people let Vice President Kamala Harris down. They raised nearly $2 billion. The challenge should be, Rebecca, to the leadership of her campaign. If your ass knew you needed a huge black turnout, why were you throwing bullshit concerts and not putting that money on the ground with paid staff in Georgia? I talked to people who said they did not get mailers in Georgia. I talked to staff who said they had, I'm talking about people who worked on the campaign in Georgia who said it was a struggle. I dealt with people when we took the show to North Carolina and talked about the issues that they had trying to get the campaign to focus on East North Carolina, the Black Belt, versus West North Carolina. And so, Rebecca, I say all of that because I believe that we have to challenge ourselves as black people to not sit elections out because, again, as we just laid out in the previous segment, we are absolutely on the menu. We on the menu, we the appetizer, we the entree, we the dessert, and we the before and after drink. We on the table. But what I need Congressman Clyburn to say and name check Jen O'Malley Dillon, Stephanie Cutter, David Plouffe, Quentin Fulks, and also that PAC that raised billions of dollars that would not even return emails or text messages from me personally. So I know they weren't talking to other black people. The Democratic infrastructure has to own up to their failure about properly going after funding and targeting their core voters. Go ahead and weigh in.
So I don't like the framing that Herndon used. I also didn't like the 2023 hit piece that he wrote about Kamala Harris when he was still at the New York Times.
Oh, we all remember that one.
The New York Times used him. So I don't like the framing of the question. Also, respectfully to Mr. Clyburn, I remember what he said election night. I remember it clearly what he said election night.
For folks who don't remember, what was it?
I remember what he said on camera and off camera. I remember the names that he was checking of those who did things that sabotaged the vice president's campaign. There was definitely political malfeasance that was practiced by different consultants and folks who were in senior positions on that campaign. It wasn't just all white senior people on that campaign. There were also people in blackface who did things that undermined the efficacy of that campaign. The candidate herself, when you listen to her book, 107 Days, whether she wrote it directly or was partially ghostwritten, I decided to listen to an audio book. And because she read it herself, that means she co-signed everything that's inside that book. I would say after listening to that book through audio book, I also walked away and it confirmed different things that I observed about the campaign, but I also questioned some of her decision making in the campaign, including people that she fired or kept on, didn't keep on, people she listened to. So there's some things there. That said, also, I'm an attorney. Also, I lead a national voting rights organization. I understand the patchwork of bad bills, policies, executive orders, court decisions that have impacted and have put more friction into our system that disproportionately make it harder for Black voters to vote. If those voter restrictions weren't on the books in 2024, do I think Black voter participation would have been a lot higher? Absolutely. So I'm not going to just turn to Black voters and say, hey, Black people, you didn't do enough here, when I understand the other issues that has contributed to stagnant turnout for Black folks. And as a former campaign manager and political strategist, I also understand that strategically, if the Black vote was a higher percentage in certain states, like in Michigan, in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in different battleground areas, then I absolutely do think that the result of 2024 will be different. So for me, my answer is layered.
Yep.
Because
there's no silver bullet, no one thing that caused the problem. And see, Derek, Quincy Alexander in the chat says Roland needs to let it go and focus on the 2026 midterms, particularly the House and the Senate. See, Quincy, what you're telling me is you don't watch this show. What you're actually telling on yourself. Because see, Quincy, I have said on this show that if you repeat the strategy in 2026 that you did in 2024, that you did in 2022, their ass is toast. I'm sorry, Quincy. Please, who else has consistently yelled and screamed that Democrats are going to have to spend 4 times as much time, 4 times as much money targeting Black people? I'm sorry, Quincy, you weren't at the table when I said that directly to Vice President Kamala Harris at the Vice President's mansion when she met with Black men. I was there, you weren't. Quincy, you weren't there when I said the exact same thing, when I criticized that raggedy-ass Blacks for Biden rollout in Philadelphia, where they did not aggressively have Black-owned media there, where they invited Governor Westmore, Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, and at the event, they had one person introducing Biden and Harris, and that wasn't even Sherelle Parker, the mayor of Philadelphia. It wasn't even the sister who is now the Speaker of the House. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I doing a roll call here? See,
I mean, not having the mayor there might have been a good thing.
And Quincy, just so you know, I specifically lit up the deputy campaign manager, Quentin Folks. I lit up their Black media person, as well as one of their Black press secretaries, saying, what the hell kind of rollout was this? See, Quincy, what you don't understand is they spent about $22 million on Black-owned media, and BET got $9.3 million of the $22 million. So, Quincy, the reason I'm bringing it up is so you don't repeat the same thing in 2026, because we now know BET is owned by right-winger David Ellison. Does BET have a news show? No, they don't. So why would you spend millions of dollars with them more than any other black-owned media entity when you're trying to turn out black people? See, Quincy, you can't forget the past. No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I'm gonna go to you, Derek. Quincy, and others who think like you cannot lay out a future path unless you examine the past and the present to then say, we need a new template for the future. Mm-hmm. So you have to look back, Quincy, not just at 24, 22, you actually have to go back to 08 when the Obama campaign team completely obliterated the black infrastructure that was within the Democratic National Committee, the black infrastructure that had been put in place after Reverend Jackson's runs in 84 and 88, that was put in place, that was a negotiation with the Dukakis campaign, that was put in place by Ron Brown, the first black chair of a major political party, that was also put in place by Dr. Ron Walters as well. Howard University, University of Maryland. So Quentin, you don't understand. What you don't understand is that the Obama campaign, the white folks running it, what the white strategists did was they just figured we could just roll Obama out and they're gonna vote no, not realizing that black folks voted the way we did in 2008, 2012 because of him. His popularity doesn't transfer to everybody else. So the reality is, if you want to study the Obama presidency, the election in 08 and 12, you actually have to look at it as an anomaly because he was the first. Now, Quentin, the reason I don't look at the Obama election as an anomaly, because I believe when we as black people show our power, then we can prove that we can do it. And I know y'all may not understand this, Quentin, others may understand this, but I remember when I was at the Dallas Weekly, and Derek Zabor and Rebecca, y'all gonna really love this. My man Kelvin Bass, good brother, he's working for Texas State Senator Royce West, been with him probably 15, 20 years. So Kelvin was a staff writer at the Dallas Weekly. God rest the soul of Jim Washington, who was the publisher. So I signed Kelvin the front page article on Erykah Badu. Now, Kelvin knew Erykah's grandmother. And so Kelvin turns in this story. And I was amazed, Derek, because I barely had to edit the story. I mean, I'm talking about sentence structure. It had rhythm. It was flowing. Normally I had to reconstruct some of his stuff. But I barely had to touch it. Was the board the next week, it was some story, wasn't the front page. And he turned it in, and it was pure shit. So I said, Kelvin, come holler at me. I said, what the hell is this? He said, what you mean? I said, last week, you turned in a story I barely had to edit. This week, Rebecca, I said, you turned in some trash. So what that tells me is you didn't give a damn about this week's story because you didn't put the same care into it like you did last week. I said, Kelvin, you remember that scene? Y'all, I'm about to cuss, so everybody watching, I'm just going to let y'all know I'm about to cuss. Y'all remember that scene from Menace to Society? When Bill Duke said, now you know you done fucked up, right? You know you done fucked up. I told Kelvin that. I said, Kelvin, here's the problem. Last week, you showed me that you can actually do it. The problem is that's now the standard that I expect of you. So what I'm arguing, Derek, is that if black people showed America in 2008 and 2024 that we have the ability to turn out in a massive way. And as we all know, in 2012, go to my iPad, black people voted that we are the blue line, white folks are the black line. This is 2012. We actually voted at a higher percentage than white people did for the first time in American history. All I'm asking, Derek, for black folks is replicate what you already did. And if you replicate what you did in 2008 and 2012, we can not just win the White House, we can win statewide offices. That means that we can take control of the North Carolina Supreme Court. We could actually win statewide in Texas. I know all these people out here running their mouths, talking about Tallarico, okay, be cracking. Y'all, the primary is over. If you telling me who I got to pick between Ken Paxton and James Tallarico, that ain't even a conversation. You damn right I'm saying vote Tallarico, because I know how evil Paxton is. So I think what Clyburn is saying, and I would have said it a little bit differently, what I would have said to black people is, show our power every election, and when we do, we can turn up and turn out.
You're exactly right, Roland. And what you're saying is we just need to maximize our capacity and our power. Your chart is very clear. Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. In 2008, our black voter turnout was 65.2%. In 2012, the black voter turnout was 66.6%. But after that, in 2016, 59.6, 2020, 62.6, and 2024, 60%. And so the Democratic Party, that infrastructure that you and Rebecca referenced, the Democratic Party need to learn from their previous lessons. If they invest in that Southern strategy that we talked about when we were on set, right there at the DNC in Chicago, on set, right there in Roland Martin show, we were talking about a Southern strategy. If you took 20% of that nearly $1.8 billion that she raised in 107 days, if you would take just 20% of that and invested in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, we would have had a difference in the outcome in 2024. And so we can not only maximize our capacity, but we need to continue to tell the Democratic Party, the establishment, if you want to change voter turnout, you got to do three things. It's very clear. You have to do voter engagement. How do you do voter engagement? Because Democrats right now, we only touch the voter 4 times compared to Republicans 12 times. Barack Obama in 2008, and you know this, Roland, they touched him 8 to 9 times. And so in order to change that gap, we got to invest in black media. We got to invest in the ground game, not these commercials. And then last but not least, when we have those candidates out there, we got to make sure that they're in the right places, saying the right things, and it's not always done in these rallies, rah, rah, rah. We got to make sure that they're on the ground and doing that retail politics and getting to the door.
All I'm trying to show, Zabora, are the numbers. The black turnout, Zabora, in Texas was awful when Congressman Colin Allred ran against Senator Ted Cruz. Now, let me be real clear. Colin Allred ran a shitty campaign. It was awful. I can tell you I personally reached out to him saying I would do my show in Texas. On the night he won the primary, I never heard from him or his campaign again through Election Day. If y'all think I'm lying, I got the text messages. I keep receipts. But here's my whole point. Look right here. These are the results. Ted Cruz won by 971,000 votes in Texas. Now, I know somebody is sitting here, Rebecca, going, Roland, what? That's 900,000 votes. Do y'all know that Texas has 4.5 million eligible black voters? Okay, since some people don't seem to understand basic math. I wasn't good at geometry and algebra, but I understand basic as math. So if I go 4.5 million, and I say if 70% of the eligible black voters in Texas turn out, that's, from black people alone, that's 3.1 million. That means that if you're Tallarico this year, or if you were Colin Allred, or Beto O'Rourke when he ran the Cruz because 18, that means that if you got 3.1 million just black people, and then you went out, and y'all got to remember, Texas is 61% minority, but the people who vote are 61% white. So I mean, you got 3.1 million black people, all you got to do is go pick up 3 million white and Latino people, and you win. This is what Clyburn was saying, Zipporah, that we cannot be difference makers if our turnout is 48, 52, 55, and we excited when it hit 60. No, we've got to be saying 70% is the floor. Harold Washington became the first black mayor of Chicago because 85% of all eligible black people in Chicago voted. That means 15% of eligible black people didn't either voted for the other guy, which probably was not happening, or didn't vote. 85%. So we have to recondition our minds aboard to saying, hit that 70 minimum, hit 70 minimum, because if you pick up an extra 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 250,000 black voters, that's the difference in the election in statewide. Go ahead.
We got to start listening to black people that understand this process. Relationships are important. We can't keep, the Democrats have an awful job at messaging and really understanding or campaigning for black people's needs throughout the year. Policy it got to be felt. It can't just be talked about when you get up there at the last minute. Yes, black people have to get out and vote. We have to do everything in our power to get out and vote. But the people running these campaigns have to listen to the people that are black in these communities, that are grassroots organizations that are telling you, hey, we're right outside this community of black people is large. They have a large voting population. Let's go in that neighborhood. Let's go to Bowman. Let's go to some of these places. And I'm from Texas, so I'm just thinking of those black communities that we're not reaching, that we're not getting involved in.
The numbers are the numbers. You're talking about Beaumont, Port Arthur. You got to go down to East Texas. You can't just you can't spend your time in Harris County and Dallas County. And no, there are, just like you have the black belt in North Carolina, which is East North Carolina. You split North Carolina in half. Y'all, it is so crazy. You can literally split it in half and say, hey, y'all do y'all normal thing west, but man, we gonna go hard in the east. You win. I literally had that conversation with Governor Roy Cooper. He knows this. I mean, he was the governor there. But the bottom line is, he wins if you lock down the black belt in North Carolina. Georgia, Warnock and Ossoff won in 2020. Warnock won in 2022. Because it wasn't just Fulton County, it wasn't just Gwinnett County. No, you had to hit Albany, you had to hit Jonesboro, you had to hit Athens, you had to hit Augusta, you had to hit Savannah, you had to go touch these rural folks. You got where the people are. But again, this is what we need. And trust me, I've had this conversation directly with Congressman Jim Clyburn, so I ain't talking out of turn. Zipporah, what is absolutely needed, if there's a moment, if there is a moment where the Congressional Black Caucus, along with black mayors, along with black state reps, state senators, say, Democratic Party, not just Ken Martin, but the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Campaign Congressional Committee, DCCC, the DSCC for the U.S. Senate, Democratic Governors Association, Senate Majority PAC, House Majority PAC, all y'all, enough of this bullshit. Put, what Derek said it, 20%. Not 3, not 5, not 8.
Right.
And then what you got to say is, where the black consultants? And then you got to say to the black consultants, don't sit your ass up in these meetings being the spook who sat by the door, because if you actually read the story, they opened the door. No. Too many closed the door. Mm-hmm. This is the moment. And guess what? I've been saying since last year, they should be in their ass. They should be going to the Democratic Alliance. They should be going, like, I don't even know all them funding groups. They need to go to all them groups. Rebecca, you know all them damn groups. Go to them damn donors and say, enough of this crap, listen to these white consultants. You not gonna retake the Senate in Ohio with Sherrod Brown. Oh, I was talking to his campaign last time. They never followed through in the advertising. And I'm not saying we the be-all, the end-all. I'm just telling y'all what the actual experience was. It was just chatter. Nothing ever happened. His ass lost because he didn't get the turnout he needed in Cleveland, in Dayton, in Akron, in Columbus, in Cincinnati. That's Ohio. Michigan, they got their primary on Tuesday. You're going to need black turnout in a massive way to hold that Senate seat. You're going to need massive black turnout in Georgia to hold that Senate seat of Senator John Ossoff. If you beat the ground and do massive black turnout in Kentucky, and you really go after those white voters, and you tell Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, take y'all ass down there and go talk to them white folks about poverty, about health care, Booker might be a U.S. Senator. And you got to go down to Texas. Do the same thing. Tallarico said he's going to spend $25 million. The outside PAC should be saying we're going to match or double that to turn out black folks. Poll just came out moments ago. One poll has Tallarico up 5 points. Another has Paxton up 1 point. I'm telling y'all, what Clyburn said, the numbers are the numbers. If 70% is our floor, y'all, I'm telling you, we win. And I'm not making a Democratic argument. I told y'all before, the parties are nothing more than delivery systems. And if this party over here don't want to deliver jack to us and they just want to take and take and take, well, then we can make demands of this party, and then when they win, that's when we say, your ass here because of us. Now you're going to deliver the resources and the policies that we want. And then if you don't, we're going to run somebody against you in the primaries and take you out and then help them in the primary. Y'all, elections are about math. And if our votes are sitting at home, on the couch, untapped, no one talking to them, no one reaching out to them, it ain't going to happen. Board, please finish your point.
I remember the feeling of being in Beaumont at Lamar University in 2008. Michelle Obama came to Beaumont. Barack was in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. They went everywhere. You got to feel that energy again. And he may have been an anomaly and it may not be able to happen again. But what we can do is work with what we have. We know that these places have these older voters. We know that these are college towns where college voters are coming out. But chasing the white woman vote to get her to vote another way, and that never happens, we got to stop wasting our time and really focus on the people that are doing the work and working with the grassroots organizations, meeting people where they are. Listen to our grassroots organization. They doing the work every day.
Last point I'll make here, and I'll let you speak to this, Rebecca. somebody said, Michael Hotep said, I agree with Roland, but our organizations also have to invest in voter education and black voter turnout. NAACP is investing $20 million in black voter turnout for the 2026 midterms. Where do you think the money comes from? Michael, you can't say that we need our groups to invest when last year Black Voters Matter had a 40% reduction in funding. Where in the hell do you think the money comes from? It comes from donors. It comes from the billionaire class. And y'all just need to understand how the system works. These major billionaires and mega millionaires, there are certain white, largely male consultants they listen to. And they tell them, no, spend your money over here and spend your money this way. Because as Rebecca knows, and we talked about before, that's how they buy second houses and yachts and cribs in Italy and France. Y'all need to understand, there is the business of politics. And there are people who are earning millions upon millions of dollars in fees, and they really don't give a damn who wins, because the way the system is set up, you don't get penalized because you lose. You don't get penalized because you got bad strategy, because it's very incestuous in terms of how the money goes. And this is why, Rebecca, this is where black folks have to walk in to the meeting with a sledgehammer and say, no. We ain't about to have the same conversation. And then we're not going to keep it quiet. We're going to publicly call y'all asses out. Privately calling people out don't mean nothing if they continue to operate the same way, Rebecca. This is the time for some folk to be put on Front Street by our black elected officials.
Well, let's be clear. Black liberation doesn't run through our political or elected leaders. Black liberation doesn't run through the Democratic Party. Black liberation doesn't run through the Republican Party. Black liberation, for damn sure, don't run through nonprofits. It doesn't run through C3, C4s, 527, independent expenditures, and the like. So I would say even before we get to the demands for our Black elected officials, we have to understand that the reason why we encourage people to vote is because this is about full citizenship in this country. But we also understand that just because someone is Black at the ballot box, and they're Black on the ballot, it doesn't mean that the policies that they particularly support furthers Black liberation or furthers Black communities. And so we have to start looking at the candidates and what the candidates are talking about. We can look at New York Mayor Mamdani, the things that he is doing specifically to make sure many of the Black residents whose homes were stolen, making sure there's investigation to get their homes back to them. So when we start to look at policy, we have to understand that we have to do an education, a teaching within our community about policy. Once people get in office, we have to hold them accountable. If they're not doing the things that we need them to do, then you vote them out. And so, like you said, we know in the Democratic Party apparatus, we know that the spoils and the millions and the billions of dollars from the Kamala race went largely into white pockets, didn't go into Black pockets. And so I think this needs to be a broader conversation. I see the time, but I think we actually need to spend time, because 97 days from today is election day. 98 days from today is the beginning of the 2028 election cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we do what we do every single day, and we're going to keep doing it regardless of whatever happens. Rebecca, Derek, Zabor, I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Thanks so much. Folks, that is it for us. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate all of you who are watching, who support the work that we do. We've had nearly 50,000 donors contribute to our show since we launched September 4th, 2018. And I appreciate every single one of you. We do the work here without fail. So if you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, your contributions really do make a difference in terms of the work that we do. So please, if you want to use the QR code for Stripe, it's right here. That's for credit cards as well. That's for Cash App. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com for ways to donate. Check some money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. YouTube people, why are we at 801 likes? Y'all, we should easily be at 1,000. Man, this has been a powerful show. Come on, man. Y'all have been commenting. We should easily be hitting 1,000. Let's hit 1,000 before we get out of here. It's 801. We need 199 more likes. All right, check some money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Samsung Smart TV. Get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, as well as our 250 America 250 shirts, by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com. All of our great merchandise go there. Also, all the products that you see in our studio right here, these are all black-owned companies. More than 50 companies. They are available at our marketplace at shopblackstarnetwork.com. When you buy goods and services from there, you are supporting this show as well. And so you name it, we got it. We're adding new products every single day. And so we appreciate it. Folks, download the app Fan Base. Follow me at Roland S. Martin. I certainly appreciate it. And beginning next month, we've got a new show we're launching with Jeff Johnson. Here is the promo.
Let me ask you a question. Why do so many people seem to think they know black men so well? What they think we want, what they think we need. Hell, they even tried to tell us why and how we voted, but never had a conversation with us. Never asked us how we felt, what brings us joy, what makes us angry, what makes us scared. How do we live? That's what this show is about. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. We can speak for ourselves. This will be a show where we bring brothers on that you don't see on every other talk show. Nope. Brothers that are doing work in local communities with black men for black communities. We're going to hear each other and try to understand so perhaps we can move forward together. No translation, because we don't need anybody speaking for us. Nope. What we need is each other. No translation, right here on the Black Star Network. Check it out.
Folks, again, that's debuting next month. All right, y'all, that is it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!